Hey everybody, welcome to Pop Culture Philosophers. I'm Rockin' Robbie Billups, and it's time for the weekly comic book review. That's right, everybody. Thanks for checking out the video. I am Rockin' Robbie Billups. This is the weekly comic book review. It's the show where I read a lot of comic books, and I'll let you know what I thought about them. But before we get into that, I gotta give a big shout out to Michael Nichols. He's recently joined us over at patreon.com/PCP. Homie, I really do appreciate the support. This one goes out for you. Now, we always start with the pick of the week, so let's get into it. The pick of the week is Giga #1 from Vault Comics. No real surprise here. I had already read this, did an advance review. I highly encourage you to check that out if you want a little bit more of an in-depth discussion about my ideas on this book. But I loved Giga #1. It's written by Alex Paknadel. It's got artwork by John Lee. It's got coloring by Rosh, and it's got lettering by Aditya Bidikar. This is a top-notch team doing a top-notch book. It immediately hooks me in with the concept. The concept is this. It's a world in which there was this war that lasted forever, that was fought by these giant mechs, these giant robots. They're called Giga, right? When the war was over, they all just kind of sat down, turned off, and chilled out. Now, humanity takes up residence inside of these machines and even worships them as gods, and they kind of build their society around them. The way of doing the world building through introducing the characters, through some flashbacks here and there. The world building is absolutely essential and amazingly done in this book. Alex Paknadel's crafted something really well, especially with his use of language to get some of these ideas across. John Lee's artwork is great. It's detailed when it needs to be. It's expressionistic when it needs to be. It's very expansive, yet very constricting all at the same time as far as the feel that it's trying to emote out of the pages. The coloring is great and the lettering is top-notch. This was a great book. I loved it. I am so excited to see what's going to come. And this is the start of Wave 2 of White Noise over at Vault. So this is just the start of great things to come. In just a few weeks, we got a dark interlude by Ryan O'Sullivan. Then we've got a picture of everything else by Dan Waters. But Giga, Alex Paknadel, is leading the way with just an absolute mastery of the comic book form. And I believe this may be John Lee's first real comic book. But you couldn't convince me of that because the technique used, the level of craft is so highly advanced. It's very sophisticated. Giga was great. And it's got some really great variant covers, including this homage to Shogun Warriors #1. And then we got a variant cover right there. There's also a foil cover out there that may be a bit pricier, but I'm definitely going to get one of those. Also from Vault Comic Books, y'all, Wasted Space is back. Wasted Space is one of my favorite comic books. It returns for the start of its 4th arc, 4th out of 5. There are only 10 issues left, including this one. So issue 16, what does it do? How do we start the next journey of Billy and the gang? I loved it. It basically is, this issue is framed with a joke, and then it tells, the origin of Legion in it. Okay, if you haven't been reading Wasted Space, you really should. It's like Preacher meets Star Wars, but it's a book of raunchy and absurd humor, but it really gets into philosophical musings and the nature of morality in this universe. And I love this book so much because of it. This book, once again, takes it all out, and it's funny, it's hilarious, it's got crazy ideas, beautiful artwork by Hayden Sherman. The writer, by the way, is Michael Morisi. The way that he can tell these crazy stories and be irreverently funny and humorous, and however have these really deep philosophical musings that actually make a lot of sense, right? The way he can do that is just absolutely astonishing. And Hayden Sherman's artwork, oh my goodness, I love his artwork. I know a lot of people think they kind of get turned off by it, but I'm telling you what, it's complex, it's dense, and the level of composition, oh my goodness, this is levels above, this is innovative, this is a great outing for Hayden Sherman. You add in Jason Wordie's gritting, textured coloring, and then you got Jason Campbell, who's doing some really innovative stuff himself with the lettering in Wasted Space #16. I'm just so happy that it's back. Yay! Wasted Space. It's back, and it's not skipped a beat. In fact, it's just trailblazing right ahead. Autumnal #2 is out this week. I really like this issue. I thought #1, it took a while to really kind of hook us in. But this one, we're really starting to build up this creepy atmosphere. So this is part of the Nightfall line from Vault Comics. Every fall time, they want to give us some horror comics. Last year, it was The Plot, Black Stars Above. This year, it's spearheaded by Autumnal. I really like it. It's about a lady whose mother, who she didn't have a really good relationship with, she passes away. Now she has to go to this town with her daughter, and it's an escape from a terrible situation that they're in like Chicago or something. So they go to this like New England town or something like this, and the town's really creepy, and you have the ghosts of the past and the relationship from the lady and her mother, and then how that reflects on her relationship with her daughter now. And lots of interesting, nuanced things are going on. This is written by, is it Daniel Kraus? Yeah, Daniel Kraus, Chris Sheehan, Jason Wordie, Jim Campbell. So the same letterer and colorist as Wasted Space. But the artwork is great and atmospheric and tonally appropriate for what it's trying to do. And there's something going on with the leaves, man. We still haven't quite gotten into what exactly is going on. This is a little bit of a slow burn to start with, but I'm hooked. I really like it. And if you missed out on issue number 1, they got a second printing of number 1, including a foil version. Vault's dipping into foil and chrome. Man, I love it. Heavy number 2 is here. This one's from Max Bemis with artwork by Eric Donovan, Chris Peter, Taylor Esposito's there on the lettering. Heavy number 2. So I think if you liked issue number 1, there's a chance you might like issue number 2. There's also a chance that issue 2 might be too much for you. It wasn't too much for me. I had a lot of fun with this, but this one gets a little crude. It gets a little out there. It gets a little wild, but I actually really like it. It's basically taking the idea of these guys that are kind of like heaven's assassins. Like they die, they go to this place called the Wait, everybody's assigned jobs, and this dude and now this guy who he absolutely hates from his life on Earth is now forced into being his partner, and they're assassins, and they go through the timeline, and they have to take out the problems before they really develop into something crazy. There's some wild, nutsy stuff that's going on in the pages of Heavy number 2. I found it to be incredibly funny, very crude, and just a wild, wild ride, for real. Heavy number 2 was interesting. Let's jump over to IDW. Normally now we would jump over to Marvel or DC or something, but let's jump over to IDW because I know everybody wants to know about this. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, The Last Ronin, number 1. It's here. It's real. Now, these were allocated, so there's not as many that were ordered by FOC available out there. This has given, I think, the community almost a false sense of scarcity. These books aren't scarce, but they are starting to go up online. It's already a $9 comic book because it's extra-sized, and it's literally, it's big. It's bigger than a normal comic. All in all, I'll say this. I liked this book. The book is telling, it's like Batman Returns, but with the turtles. 3 of the turtles are gone. Splinter is gone. 1 turtle remains standing. Who is it? You do find out in the pages of The Last Ronin number 1. I'm not really going to get too much into that. I'll just talk about the story. And it's exciting that Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird collaborated on this story, and that's a great excitement there. The story itself is okay. It's mostly just set up. It's both basically giving us what you would expect from a Turtles book, filling in some gaps on what exactly has happened since the familiar Turtle days. And it's showing you this new setting. It's futuristic. Things like there's flying cars and stuff. But it's doing your typical kind of turtle storytelling. So it's fine there. It's nothing that really is going to knock you out of the water. It doesn't really like super hit hard or even resonate a whole bunch. There are some scenes though towards the end where it really starts resonating. And I'm really excited now that we got the setup of the world, the reveal of who the last surviving turtle is. I'm really excited to see what happens in issue 2, to see how they can add some more weight to that and ramp up the excitement in the story. It has a lot of action. It's got some cool, exciting stuff, but it just needs to hit a little bit more on that emotional weight, and I think it will because it starts doing it in here and more so towards the end. But all in all, I liked it. I thought it was great. I don't think it's worth overpaying like crazy for. Just wait for the trade then if you're going to have to be charged like way too much for it. It's only a 5-issue series, but it's going to come out like every 2 or 3 months or something like that. But I thought the first issue was pretty solid. And it is a big event thing. Since we're on IDW, let's talk about Canto 2, The Hollow Men number 2. Or number 3, I should say. Wow, this book may be one of the most effective issues of Kanto yet. I'm not going to tell you exactly what emotion it's going to evoke out of a dedicated reader, but it's going to evoke an emotion. And this is a very well done comic book. We've talked about how this story is about story, and it really starts getting into it, and now it's questioning story. And I think that that's something very, very incredibly delicate that David Boer is doing. And then Drew Zucker and Vittorio Astoni and company, the art is great, and it looks like a kid's book. It looks like some kind of silly fairy tale, but this book carries all of the impact of some of the absolute most complex and sophisticated pieces of literature out there. Seriously, Kanto 2, The Hollow Man #3, a masterclass at effectively evoking emotion out of a reader through a comic book. Batman 3 Jokers, let's jump over to DC. It took a while to get to it, but here we are. Batman 3 Jokers #3, the final issue. Here's what I'll say. It's not really going to spoil too much, obviously, but I'll say this. Me personally, slightly disappointed with Batman the 3 Jokers overall. I thought it started with a bang. In issue #2, I was like, here's my thing. Here's my thing. The book itself is incredibly well done. Jeff Johns is doing some really interesting stuff about the brutal nature of the trauma that's been experienced by Barbara and Jason, to be exact. He's got some Bruce stuff in there as well, but that winds up kind of resolving itself in a dissatisfying manner to me. This ultimately is a decent Joker story with impeccably rendered artwork. The artwork by Fabic and the coloring by Anderson is absolutely brilliant and just masterful. Like, so freaking good. But this book, I think, fails for me because of anticipation, because of what this book should have been on the level of the weight and the anticipation for it. I am kind of disappointed in its rather mundane nature for something that I thought would be a whole lot more of a wild roller coaster, twisty, turny, bendy type thing. It wasn't that. It didn't live up to my expectations. The book itself is done very well, though I do think Johns kind of discredits his own premise towards the end of this book for the entire existence of this book. Anyway, I'm kind of disappointed. I think it's a well-done comic book. It's solidly written. It's masterfully illustrated. But it is rather mundane, in my opinion. Dark Knight's Death Metal, Rise of the New God #1. This is another one-shot part of the Death Metal story. You know I've been loving Death Metal. This is no exception. Is this 100% crucial and necessary to your understanding of Death Metal? No, but kinda, because it introduces a new character that's definitely going to be involved in the end game. So that's something that's really interesting. What this story does is it kind of tells you the history of this new character, gets you caught back up on what's going on, but basically, you know, the Darkest Knight, the Batman who laughs, he is now ascended. He is rising as the new god, and there's some crazy stuff going on. This is written by James Tynion. It's got a backup story by Brian Hill, and it's interesting, and maybe something in there will kind of clue in, but this book does introduce a concept and a character that's going to be integral to at least some of the end game of Death Metal. I would highly recommend this one. I had a lot of fun. This was crazy, fun, giant DC Crisis cosmic level stuff, and it did not disappoint. Rise of the New God, #1. Justice League Dark #27 is here from Rom V. We're really ramping up, hitting the climax of this whole upside down man type stuff. And now this was a story that was left dangling by James Tynion. Rom V came in, and there was kind of a shaky transition for a moment there, but then Rom V's identity as a writer, as a creator, got firmly established, I felt, a few issues ago, and once again in this one. Great turns, great moments, powerful moments. If you love characters like Dr. Fate or Zatanna, I'm a big fan of both of those characters. Some major moments in this book that will leave you like, what? like, I'm loving it. This is a great take on the more dark and mystical side of the DC universe, a little bit more horror influence, and I'm liking it. And it's harkening back and circling around to everything that Tynion started building, and it's just gearing up to an end game to this saga, and I'm just absolutely loving it. Justice League Dark 27 out this week. The Flash 764 is here. Second issue from the new creative team. Are they the permanent creative team? I don't know, because this is going to get interrupted by DC Endless Winter, then it's going to get interrupted by DC Future State, and then who knows what's going to happen with the Flash after that. Maybe it will be a completely different creative team. At this point, I wouldn't be against that. I think these are decent issues, but they read like filler issues. They're not super game-changing, nothing big or nothing super monumental, but this is some really cool usage of Dr. Alchemy in here, and some great explanations on alchemy and how it works in the DC universe with the blah, blah, blah. But I mean, it's all right. The Trickster story was pretty solid. This one's pretty solid, but it doesn't feel like it's a definitive, you know, opening statement on Barry and a saga. So it just feels like this is just basically some more filler. We're going to get through Future State, and then maybe we'll get a more solidified creative team and a solidified direction. That's the thing. Usually when you have a new creative team that's going to be on for an extended amount of time, they do like a very matter-of-fact, like, boom, mission statement. And we haven't really gotten that. So I don't really think, unless it's all about rings. This whole run's going to be about rings. Anyway, Flash 764 out this week. Suicide Squad number 10 is here. I believe this is the penultimate issue, because I think issue 11 is the end. It's ramping up. It's ending. There's some revelations. Some questions get answered here. It has some really hard-hitting moments at the same time. Still has a little bit of its humor, but it's got that style. And Tom Taylor has been able to tell a really great, grounded story, but also have a nice flair and style to it that's very appropriate for a title like Suicide Squad. Issue 10, I liked. It wasn't the strongest issue, but it is a bridge issue to take us into the end game. And so far, so good. I'm liking it. Suicide Squad number 10, there you go. Detective Comics 1029. I'm just not really liking Detective Comics. I feel like it's a bit directionless. Right here, we're trying to pick up on some of the threads dangling from the Joker War. We're trying to pick it up, and so usually that's a great place to jump in. It does introduce this idea of this new villain, Mirror. I think they started introducing that in the last one. I don't know. It's setting up a character, I think, that's going to be very relevant in the Dark Detective DC Future State book, so that's kind of interesting. But ultimately, Peter Tomasi is, I feel, made his statement on Batman. But this does end in a pretty interesting way, I will say that. So I thought that was neat. The way it ends had me kind of excited. But I really think Peter Tomasi's kind of made his statement. I think maybe we need to get a new creative team in here. Maybe it will happen after DC Future State. Who knows? It's line-wide, could be line-wide changes. That was what they were planning on anyway. Action Comics 1026. This is one change coming soon that I'm looking forward to, because I just do not like Bendis' Superman. I liked it at first. I thought he had a great understanding of the character. He started losing me. The stories just felt endless. Like they just kept just spiraling around and never actually resolving anything. It's all just been one mix match of a story. That's what this feels like. John Romita Jr. and Bendis, they think they're going to do some cool little trick in this issue and have like gatefold covers that you have to like turn the book around to like read. You know, it's kind of like that issue of Batman by Capullo and Snyder where he's going through the labyrinth, you know, and you had to like turn it around and it led to a very impactful moment. It's like that, but it completely fails because it's just actually an irritant. It does not enhance the story. It does not engross you into the book like that Batman one did. It just sticks out. It makes it an almost near intolerable comic book reading experience, pretty much intolerable. This book sucked. Ugh, that pissed me off. Batman, Superman number 13, directionless. I mean, the only thing that sells this book is that it's Batman and Superman. Josh Williamson's a great writer, but these stories, they don't really have any kind of impact. It's just, hey, we got Batman and Superman in a story together. This is a book to sell that's based on the brand. It's not based on the power of the story. It's based on the power of the characters and their recognizability. That's what sells a Batman Superman book. That's why they always kind of fail in the long run, because it starts with a cool, impactful story. They always do. You know, the Public Enemies story, that was a big deal for DC at the time. The Infected, that was kind of a big, you know, stepping stone into death metal. But then once that's over, it's just like filler Batman Superman stories that may have worked in the 60s. Doesn't work today. Not at all. And finally, Sandman Universe Hellblazer number 11. This is the penultimate issue. We're almost at the end. I love this book. It's got a great back to the roots Vertigo feel. It's horror. The artwork is dark, gritty, textured. It evokes like just the darkest of impulses within. I love it. It's got the character of Constantine nailed. Everything's becoming clear. It's making a statement on society. It's making some commentary on some social issues, and I'm loving it. I think Hellblazer is in strong hands. It just sucks that there's only one issue left, because this has been hellaciously awesome, and Hellblazer had finally gotten back to what it's supposed to be as that dark, gritty, moody, and slightly askew Vertigo horror title. Jumping over to Marvel, we have X-Men, Ten of Swords, Stasis. This is the next one-shot in the Ten of Swords epic. And like I said, if you really wanted to, you can get every single one of these, and I think it's a pleasurable experience. But if you want to get the ones that are absolutely necessary, I think this one's kind of necessary. What has happened so far is that all of the X-Men have gathered their swords. We know who the sword bearers are. We know what the swords are. All that's in place, so now we get to the Stasis point. That's right, the battle hasn't yet begun, but what happens in this issue is just awesome and fantastic. There are some great revelations in here that have great shock power, even though some of them we could see coming. The artwork by Pepe Larraz is just masterful. You got Mahmoud Asrar in there as well. You get introduced to the sword bearers of Morocco, and you get to see a little bit of the other world provinces and the way that they work together. And like I said, it's a great, powerful ending that completely shifts the focus and stakes on this Ten of Swords event. I loved this issue. I thought it was super strong. Jonathan Hickman, Teenie Howard, they worked on this one together. I think that the X-Men books are just right back to being talked about, being exciting. People are coming in every week like, oh, is there a new Ten of Swords? This week, all we got is the Ten of Swords Stasis. This is chapter 11. Oh, but it was awesome. I loved it. The artwork was great. The impactful moments were impacting. That's how you do event comics. Marvel knows how to do it. They know how to do it at some points. Immortal Hulk 39 is here. What a wild issue of Immortal Hulk. I loved this one. You got the leader kind of revealing his full plans, kind of making some bold moves. You got going right back to that crazy Joe Bennett, highly detailed, outrageously grotesque body horror Cronenberg type stuff. Holy cow, I loved this issue, and it sets up a crazy endgame for Immortal Hulk, because if there are only 11 issues left, as we've been led to believe that this run will end at 50, it's going to be incredibly crazy towards the end here. I love this issue. It blew me away. It was balls to the wall. I had so much fun with that. Strange Academy number 4 is here. Another great issue of Strange Academy. It's becoming a little bit more into its flow, right? Like, every issue has been good, but now we're just kind of getting into a flow. We're telling good stories about these kids at this magic school. It's basically the Marvel version of Hogwarts. And in this issue, we also introduce a mystery that's tied to Doctor Strange, which is definitely going to come up. But when you got Humberto Ramos on the artwork, as long as he stays here, this book's going to continue to shine like this, especially with Scotty Young. Scotty Young's doing a great job of telling a story that really is appealing to long-term, old-school adult Marvel fans, and probably even newer, and probably even younger than what your typical comic book reader would be. Strange Academy does a great job, and it's introduced us to one of my absolute favorite new characters. I think his name is Draco, right? Whatever his name is. The Kid Dormammu. I'm loving Strange Academy. It's great. Fantastic Four Antithesis number 3 is here. It's nice to see Neil Adams draw the Fantastic Four. It would have been nicer to see him draw them back in the 70s. It's nice to have Mark Waid back writing the Fantastic Four, but it's not quite like his actual run on Fantastic Four he did with Mike Wieringo, rest his soul. So this book is cool, and it's neat to have, and you do get cosmically infused Fantastic Four characters in here, but ultimately the story is a bit dumb. It's not going to turn people into Fantastic Four fans, but it is nice to see Neil Adams draw the Fantastic Four. It is, and Galactus and everything else. But the ending on this one was pretty freaking interesting. Amazing Spider-Man issue 51. Yeah, we're going to get an Amazing Spider-Man every single freaking week. In fact, I think one week we get the issue of Amazing Spider-Man and the Amazing Spider-Man .LR the same day. If that happens, it may break me, y'all. It just may break me. I've been doing the weekly comic book review for 4 years, but that would be what could break me, is if we had 2 Anyway, Amazing Spider-Man number 51. The best part about this comic book is the cover. I love that psychedelic stuff. Otherwise, it doesn't really advance the story. It's once again like, ooh, Kindred, mysterious. Doctor Strange, ooh, Kindred, mysterious. That's it. Nothing happens. Why are these damn storylines like 12 parts long when nothing happens? If you guys can't tell, I have such an abusive relationship with the Amazing Spider-Man with the Spencer run right now. Spider-Man Noir number 5 is here. Story ends satisfyingly. It's decent. You know, if this was like an animated movie, you'd be like, okay, that wasn't too bad. Juan Ferreira's artwork, though, was the highlight of this book. It was beautiful. It's gorgeous. The layouts, the composition, the design of the action scenes, the usage of color. It's just magnificent. We need to get Juan Ferreira on a more flagship book. Next up, I think he's got the Thunderbolts King in Black miniseries, but get him on something marquee. He would be perfect for a Blade book when the Blade movie's about ready to come out, because you know we're going to get one. Doctor Doom number 8 is here. These are those kind of issues that I really hate. It's a bunch of like splash pages with a bunch of text. And it's okay. It's a decent technique, I guess, to tell the story, but it also just feels like you're trying to shoehorn in as much story as possible because you just found out this book's like got not too much longer left. I don't know. I'm not saying that it doesn't or that it's ending soon. It just feels like it is, but I don't know. There are parts of this book where you're like, that's exactly what Victor would do. And there's parts of this book where I'm like, that's exactly what I think Victor would not do. So it's my own attachment to the character that's really prohibiting me from enjoying this book, which I think is out of character for Victor throughout most of the run. I don't know. Doctor Doom. What can I say? It was nominated for an Eisner. Shang-Chi number 2 is here. A decent issue. Pretty exciting. Not as exciting or as captivating as the first one, but it does elaborate a little bit more on that, including the unknown until now little sister that Shang-Chi has, what she's doing, what her motivations are, how this kind of like, it's almost like a retread, like retreading some of the stuff of the history of Shang-Chi, like maybe cleaning it up, making it more accessible, getting it ready for the movie or something like that. But Jinlun Yang does a pretty great job. Dike Ruan does a great job. Philip Tan even does a little bit here. So all in all, I think it's a pretty solid book. It's just a 5-issue series, but it's great to kind of reestablish him and get him cemented back into the Marvel Universe before his movie starts coming out, which I have heard has wrapped up. Runaways, number 32 is here. I don't typically read Runaways, but Brett the Mess Hess said that he wanted me to check it out. Said that this was supposed to be a good jumping on point. It was a surprise issue. Nobody really knew it was coming out. So I read it, and I'll tell you this. It's not a bad issue. Had some great character moments. It was pretty funny. Had great pacing. The humor was incredibly well paced. That's Rainbow Rowell, I think. I'm not familiar with their work. But I was lost. I'll tell you, I was like, what's going on? But I was like, maybe I need to get caught up on Roel's Runaways run. Because I remember reading that at first. I just need to do a massive Runaways reread. Anyway, Runaways number 32 is out. It's pretty decent. I may not continue on with the story from this point forward, but I'm definitely thinking about reading the entirety of that run there. Black Widow, Widow's Sting. Yeah, Widow's Sting, number 1. So this was a one-shot that was designed to come out because the movie was supposed to be coming out, right? Alas, that's not happening yet. But they're like, whatever, we're going to put it out. It was Ralph Macchio is the writer, not from Karate Kid. That's just, Ralph Macchio is an old-school editor at Marvel, but that is funny though, right? This is forgivable, like forgettable, I should say. This is nothing. They've done this before. They did this with Black Panther. They did this with Captain Marvel. This is just kind of like a thrown together story that's just, you know, just to be like, oh, here's a Black Widow comic. You want a Black Widow comic? Here, get this. This is a one-shot story, one and done. Because you don't really do that. Maybe somebody would go watch the Black Widow movie. They would come into a comic shop, be like, hey, we just watched Black Widow. What comic book should we get? And this is one that you could be like, oh, just get this one. The problem is they read this, they probably wouldn't come back for any more. But this is not very, very good. Let's jump over to Image Comics with Department of Truth number 2. This almost made the pick of the week. Almost. This was close. Department of Truth number 2 was amazing, and it was incredibly effective as well. It continues on after the revelations from the previous issue, and I'm still not trying to want to really spoil it for people, but the idea, let's just say that reality is relative, right? Okay? And so this is great teen dog shadesy type stuff. It digs in a little bit with conspiracy theories and stuff like that. And in issue 2, we start getting into the main character's history, into his past, into what makes him tick. See a little bit of his home life, see a little bit of his past, see a little bit of the trauma that he's carrying with him, and why getting the revelations that he got at the end of the last issue is really sending him into like a mental spin. And it has something to do with the satanic panic stuff that was going on around the 70s and 80s, where everybody was worried that people were doing all these satanic rituals and all that kind of stuff. Very masterfully done. James Tynion does a great job of building the story up, building the tension through words, handling lots of exposition, but still making it effective, in part because of Martin Simmons' artwork. The artwork in this book is absolutely amazing, and it's incredibly effective. It's like a Bill Sienkiewicz, like a Dave McKean. It's abstract, it's weird, it's out there, but it's incredibly effective. It reaches out and it grabs you, and it pulls on the heartstrings that Tynion says Simmons make them pull on these strings. And then you got to ditch a Bidikar. I always talk about how he is the best letterer in the business right now. He did Giga as well. Just look at the lettering in Giga, and then pick up Department of Truth and look at the lettering. See the difference, and then understand as you're reading it why that difference helps accentuate the tone and atmosphere of the book. It's a masterclass in lettering here in Department of Truth by Aditya Bidikar. This book was awesome. I frickin' loved it. Ascender number 14 is here. We're getting more and more connections to the story that came before, Descender. And I love it. I'm loving it so much. You're getting a wider, more epic scope to the story now. It's hitting a scale. It's always dealt, Descender and Ascender has always handled the small moments so well. And it mostly builds on these small moments, and then all of a sudden the outer scale of the story comes into view. And that's some of the most beautiful moments that Jeff Lemire and Dustin Nguyen create in Ascender and Descender. This was a crazy, awesome issue. I loved it. Great artwork, great story, great characters, great pacing. Uncender. Can we do Uncender? I just never want this to end. Tons of Cinders. Let's just do it. Whatever. The Cinder Legacy. Undiscovered Country is here with issue number 9. And once again, this book is just taking me in and it's sucking me in. The way that they're taking beliefs, ideas, belief structures, propaganda, history, mythology and legend, all the American mythology and legend, they're putting it all together into this crazy vision of America in the future. And now we get introduced to another region. We've already seen, what was it called? Oh, I can't even remember. The Mad Maxy one. The one where it's like libertarian gone wild. And now in this one is like technology gone crazy. I'm loving it. This story is amazing. They're really crafting a really great, intricate Lord of the Rings, Wizard of Oz-esque type mythology, and they're laying it all out there with American mythology, as if, thousands of years from now, all they knew about America was what they could find, digging through the ruins of our civilization, and this would be like, if they would base a religion, I love the crazy ideas, I love the execution. I think this book keeps getting stronger and stronger, and it's just got some great, wild concepts, in my opinion. Undiscovered Country number 9. The one thing the book lacks, though, is a real good emotional anchored character, a character that you 100% kind of relate to and feel for. That's the one thing I think the book is missing. Destiny was the first place, and the new place is called The Something. What is it? Oh, what is it? This is going to bother me, and it's slowing up the video because I can't get this page turned. Welcome. Unity. That's what it is. Spawn 311 is here. That's really cool. Chadwick Boseman tribute cover. That's super, super cool. By Todd McFarlane. I read this issue. It's got some great moments. It's got Carlo Barberi doing the artwork, who recently, in recent issues of Wonder Woman, was not selling me. Doing a pretty decent job. Of course, that's, I guess, under the guise and tutelage of Todd McFarlane. Story, though, is a bit confusing to me still. I'm still getting into Spawn, the new issues. I've read the last several. And I get the basic gist of what's going on, but like the dude that he's talking to, the white dude, I have no idea who that guy is. And I kind of don't want to really find out, because I don't want to spoil Spawn, because right now I'm like on issue 80. And I'm rather enjoying it. Spawn 311 is here. The Chadwick Boseman tribute cover. Lots of people are going to be after that. A Man Among You #3. A great pirate adventure comic book about Anne Bonny. Throwing in other legendary characters and figures, I think. I don't know. I don't know pirate history. But I like this story. It feels like what Pirates of the Caribbean should be. Like when you watch Pirates of the Caribbean, and let's be honest, we watch it and we'll be like, there's a better movie inside of here somewhere. It's A Man Among You. This is a great story. It's got great dialogue, great action, great clean line work that really gets that point across. And I'm loving it. A Man Among You, #3 out this week. Also from Image Comics, let's talk about this. Blue and Green, the graphic novel, is here. It's $17.99. But look inside of that. That is absolutely gorgeous artwork by Anand R.K. We got John Pearson, Aditya Bidikar, Tom Mueller, and yes, this is written by Aditya Bidikar. I think it's like a jazz horror type thing. I have not gotten to read it yet. I was wanting to be able to read it before this review, but I didn't. But I do want to point out that it's out. I will be reading this soon. Maybe in the next couple weeks I'll have a video or something come out for it, but it's out. This looks amazingly brilliant. Blue and Green. If you're a fan of Ram V and his work on books like These Savage Shores or Paradiso, and even his work on Justice League Dark and upcoming Swamp Thing, Catwoman stuff, check it out. Check it out. From Dark Horse Comics, we have Colonel Weird, Cosmagog. This is from the world of Black Hammer. So this is Colonel Weird, the Randall Weird character. And what I love about this is, first of all, he's been a confusing character, and I've loved that quirky nature to the character. He always seems to be out of time and space because he travels through time and space. So he always, when he appears, just seems to be like kind of lost in where he's at. And this is kind of explaining why, and it's also at the same time telling us his story. So all this does is set up the structure to come, but I'm really excited for it. Of course, it's Jeff Lemire, and it's Tyler Crook. Tyler Crook's artwork is amazing and really makes it pop, especially some of the more out there, crazy, psychedelic-inspired pages, which I think are just absolutely beautiful. Colonel Weird, Cosmagog. If you like the Black Hammer stuff, you will not be disappointed with that. Hellboy and the BPRD, The Return of Effie Cobb. I watched this. I read it. It's been a while since issue #1, so even though it was a two-part series, it felt a little disjointed because I was like, man, what's going on? But it brought me right back into it. It's a nice little fun Hellboy story. It's got some ties to the Crooked Man tale, and that's kind of neat and cool. The artwork's pretty solid. It's a bit more of an action-packed Hellboy story with the way that it's a little bit more exuberant and dynamic as far as that goes, but it still has that typical panel composition that you get out of a Hellboy Mignola type book. So all in all, it's great. This isn't the story that's going to make you turn into a Hellboy fan. If you want to get into Hellboy, I would highly encourage you to check out Seed of Destruction, especially right now at Halloween time. Does it get better than that? The only thing better than Mike Mignola might be Mike Allred. The two mics. Anyway, X-Ray Robot by Mike Allred and Laura Allred and Nate Picos is here. Issue #3, wild, wacky, ginchy. It's crazy, it's kooky, it's fun, and I love it. It's a time travel. This issue it's not confusing, but it's meant to be this zany, kind of discombobulated, really weird, fun thing that's probably going to wrap around itself a couple times. It's got one more issue. It's only 4 issues, so it's got to wrap it up really, really soon, but I'm loving it. I'm a big fan of the Allreds. I love their work, like on books like Madman, The Atomics, Silver Surfer, but X-Ray Robot, having a lot of fun with this one. Issue 3 is out this week. From Boom, we've got Power Rangers Draken New Dawn #3. This is the conclusion of the New Dawn story, which basically sees the Ranger Slayer going back into her universe and trying to piece together the ruins of this civilization that Draken has just completely messed up. You had a lot of drama at the end of the last issue. The drama ramps up. It gets resolved. It gets resolved at times in a kind of a kooky way. All in all, I think New Dawn was just an okay story. I don't really see why it was necessary or why they did it, just to kind of milk some more money out of us, have some more cool foil covers. I'm always cool with some foil covers, and I think that one's really sharp. But this does have some setup, it seems, for some things I think they're going to be exploring in the Power Rangers book going forward. But New Dawn number 3 is out this week. Speaking of Power Rangers, we have Sins of the Future, an original graphic novel out this week. This is a Time Force sequel type thing. The Red and the Pink Ranger are trying to like actually have a go at a relationship or something, and then craziness happens. I don't know. I didn't really watch Time Force. So maybe I'll watch it at some point after Horrorfest and then read this book. Who knows? Also from Boom, we have Wind. Wind number 5. This is the final issue of Chapter 1. That's right. Don't worry. Chapter 2 coming in 2021. And I'm glad, because a book that I felt started kind of weak, because this was written to be a graphic novel and not to be released as single issues. When it was released as single issues, even though it was extra size, the first issue didn't quite carry a good hook to sink you in. That appears over the course of the book. Had this been a graphic novel, by the time you get to the end, I would have been completely hooked. This issue hooks me. This is great. And knowing that this is just the first part of a much larger story makes me very giddy and happy with joy. Wind was a great comic book. All in all, when it's said and done, I had so much fun with this one, and I'm really looking forward to it continuing. Had a very satisfying ending, and like I said, it's just a stepping stone, leading us to more. And I would love to see this world expanded on, and that's definitely the plan, so that's cool. Sympathy for No Devils, number 1 is here. It's a new one from Aftershock. This one I didn't really like. This guy's like got luck powers, it seems, like things just happen around him. He's a private investigator. He used to be a detective. It's kind of cliche like that, but it's also a world of monsters. I found it a bit confusing, a bit hard to get into. I've also read issue number 2, and the first time I read them, I actually read 2 first, and I was like, this is so confusing. What a terrible book. Then I was like, oh man, I read issue 2. I need to read number 1. And so today was the second time I've read it, and it still just didn't work for me. I'm just not digging this one. This one I can't recommend. Sympathy for No Devils. Old Haunts, number 5. This is the conclusion of the AWA Upshot comic book series, and man, I really liked it. Rob Williams, Ollie Masters, Lawrence Campbell, Lee Lowridge. This is kind of like a ghost story with the mafia, with mobsters, so you could easily say like Sopranos meets, you know, a ghost story, but a very satisfying conclusion. It's about these 3 old school mob guys who are basically being haunted by the victims, by the people they've had to betray, the people they've had to put down. And just as they think they're trying to get out of the game and get clean, and everything's gonna get away scot-free, their old haunts come back. And I really liked it. I thought this was a strong ending. It's a very typical ending. It's a very easy to see coming ending. But I liked it. And with the artwork, I thought the artwork in that series has been incredibly atmospheric. It Eats What Feeds It, number 3 is here. Atmospheric, great artwork. At times, though, here it feels a bit unclear. There are certain moments. The story has a rushed ending, a simple ending. This is something that would have just been a 10-page tale and an old school Tales from the Crypt, but Scout made it a 3-issue series with really great artwork, a great sense of evil and scary and sensualness, sensuality all kind of thrown into one. But ultimately the ending was okay, but I think just reading it in one sitting, 1, 2, and 3, would provide a nice, fun, light, Halloween-y type story, so I think it's appropriate for that. Breathers, number 4 is here. I've been loving this book. It comes out like every 3 months or something. It's exercise. It's like $8. You can read it really, really quickly, though, but I love it. It's by Justin Madsen. I've been talking about this book. It's great. I love it. So each issue has like 3 or 4 different stories. It's this world where this stuff came out before the COVID situation, right? But it's in a world where something has happened to the atmosphere, and when you're outside, you have to wear a gas mask now, a breather, right? But that's not what the book's about. That's just the setting. The book is about human life. It's about despair. It's about hope. It's about the mundane and finding the beautiful in that. It's about fear. It's about anxiety. It's about life. It's about humanity. It's about isolation. And I love it. And now what's happening is all these different stories are starting to overlap and come together in a really interesting way. So Breathers is something that I absolutely love. I think people that are hardcore fans of like Jeff Lemire's solo work, like when he writes and illustrates his own stuff, I think you would like Breathers. And I would highly encourage you to check it out. If you love indie stuff, this is as indie as it gets, and I love it. Breathers, number 4 from It's Alive Comics. So that's what I read. That's what I thought about it. What are you reading? What are you digging? Let us know in the comments down below. Thank you so much for checking out the video. Please do like, share, and subscribe. And join us over at popculturephilosophers.com for podcasts, blogs, and a whole lot more. I've been Rockin' Robbie Billups. Thanks for rocking with us. Keep on reading.